Aim.
Hi, Aim. How are you?
I'm great. So I'd like to tell you about something very weird that happened to me 2 nights ago.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So I was having a dream about my mother, and whoever may not know, she's passed away a couple of years ago. And I heard, I was sort of I wasn't in a deep sleep, and I heard my mother's voice call my name. She said, Amy. She has a Southern accent. And it actually was so so loud that it woke me up. And the second I woke up, I said to myself, was this a dream or did I really hear this? Now, mind you, my stomach was in a knot because it freaked me out. It was a very loud sound. Additionally, you can I felt like I felt the voice in my ear. So I'm pretty sure that it was my mother saying hello. And I was curious as to why she might have done that for the first time in 3 years. Do you have any
Uh,
thoughts?
I yes, it was definitely your mother, and she was coming to you in a visitation form, which is different than a dream form because you remembered it, and it was even in your waking state. You said you heard her, so it's not the typical. Is that my imagination? Am I thinking I'm hearing someone? Am I hearing someone else? You heard her. So if you heard her voice,
Good.
then it was a visitation, which is so awesome that you got to have that experience. I've had that with my mother as well, at times where I've heard her, but I knew it wasn't just in my mind's eye or hearing her what I would think she would say. It's something different. It's something so real. And that sounds like what your experience was. And was she trying to give you a message? I would say yes, because you wouldn't have heard that otherwise. And is it a little message that's just something short and sweet, like I love you and I'm here for you and I'm with you? Maybe it could be a little bit more intense if you're going through something during this time period that you might need a little extra hug and love. She's letting you know that she's watching over you from the other side.
I have to say, it put me in a good mood the whole day.
Of
I haven't
course.
heard her voice in 3.5 years, and it was great. And I thought about it all day.
It's awesome. It is. When I have those little signs like that, it brings everything into focus. Like your whole life, all the little things that you're worried about, it just, floats away. And you realize that there's a much bigger place, bigger universe, and that we aren't alone, that we do have our guides with us. I had a little experience yesterday with my mother, who's been passed for 11 years. And I asked specifically, as I was driving to look at venues for my daughter's wedding, if this is the right one, show me a sign. I'd like to see specifically a rainbow. And of course, it's a rainy day, so it's very possible that could happen. But I never saw the rainbow come out in the sky. Yet, as I'm driving, there was a huge white truck with a big painted rainbow across the entire truck. So I just looked at it and smiled and just knew she was giving me this message, which was what I asked, but even in another way, almost to say, Amy, you don't have to have a real rainbow in the sky for me to give you any type of messages. So I could do it even when it's not raining. I will get that message to you. And I just felt that same way.
That happens a lot for some reason driving, either a license plate or the back of someone's car.
Yes.
And the interesting thing that I thought of was during my skeptic years, I would have just immediately dismissed it as part of my dream. But now that I'm aware, cognizant, and that's all it takes is being aware.
And also that maybe when at the time period that you had this experience where you heard your mom,
Mhm.
maybe you were also in a relaxed state,
Right.
not
Yep.
sleeping. You don't have to be sleeping. Some people have that when they're driving because they're not necessarily paying attention to anything else,
Mhm.
or they're paying attention to everything else and
Mhm.
not what they're doing. So they're more open to feeling it when they're driving or things like that.
Well, and another very interesting thing that happened this week that I would love for you to tell our listeners about. I got an email from a listener who said, I am having an emergency. My brother passed recently from COVID. He's, I guess his terms were, he's haunting me. I see him all the time, everywhere, all over my house. And he asked me if I could do a reading. And I chickened out and said, this is above my pay grade. I'll give you to the other Amy. Other Amy, blonde Amy, would you like to tell the listeners about that conversation? Fascinating.
Sure. He was a wonderful man, and we ended up speaking for about 3 hours. I don't want to say too much because I know it's a private conversation when we do readings and things like that. But he was worried because of the fact that his brother had passed, that he didn't do enough to be there for him. So when he was getting these visitations, him actually seeing his brother sitting at the table or at his bedside, he was, I don't know, fearful of it, or just feeling like, what is this message he's trying to give me? Is he mad at me? Did he want me to do something more? Because his sibling had called him to get a medication. The medication didn't work. Then I think his sibling called again and asked him if he should move him to a different hospital. And he said, no, maybe this is his time. So he felt a little bit of that guilt, blame that some people do have. But I truly believed the brother communicating with me was trying to give him the message not to feel guilt, not to feel that he could have done anything more to help, and that his visitation was to let him know to get rid of those feelings that he was having that were negative, and just to remember the good times being together. And then he said, Amy, how do I tell him this? I said, just like that, just like you would have told him when he was here. Have that conversation. He hears you telepathically, or just like I'm speaking with you right now. So hopefully I will hear from him soon, and he might not, have that experience of his brother coming to visit him. He might miss that actually if he
Mhm.
doesn't get to see him all the time. But either way, it will be something that will relieve him of some of that guilt and pressure.
And if I'm not mistaken, Aim, you got his brother's first name correct
There were
within
a
a
few people,
few minutes. And this is a complete stranger.
because it was something that not only helped him, but also I think he can relay some of those messages to his siblings.
Oh,
That will help them.
right.
So
And that's
that's a good
also,
thing.
again, it's just statistically impossible for you to guess his brother's name. I mean, it's just, there are thousands of names out there. And for you to know, it's just amazing. Still amazes me. Um,
It is it is pretty fascinating when I think about some of the names and dates and details that they give me to relay the message. And it's always something that is important in some way. To I always get something amazing and transformational every single time I have a reading. I learn something new. It enhances my life, and it also brings me closer to the other side, and to learn how to communicate all different ways, because every single situation is different. Every person is different. Therefore, their loved ones are different. So
right.
it's
Well,
amazing.
and the thing, when I had this incident with my mother 2 nights ago, and of course, I wake up, I tell my husband about what happened. Now he is also a complete 100% skeptic. And he said, well, his response was, well, that's nice that you thought you heard your mother call your name. And I said, well, I gave him an example of my aunt. My aunt, one time in her life, saw her husband about 2 weeks after he passed away, sitting on the edge of her bed, and they started talking. And I've heard that dozens of times. So if this was just someone making it up, why did it only happen that one time in her life? And why was she so specific about what happened? I just, I don't know.
That might be the only amount of time that she needed. It just might have been the goodbye. I've also had similar
Right.
people that have said the same thing. They came one more time, they heard their voice, they turned around, they saw an image of them, or they saw them sitting beside them on the bed. And that was it. That was them, I think, giving them that last goodbye that they needed, because they don't forget that.
Yeah, I've heard it from dozens of people throughout my life, people who don't necessarily even believe in ghosts or any of this. So anyway.
They know about it. They know, because they know that it was a visitation. Or maybe they don't know that that's what it would be called,
Right.
but they knew it was real. Phone
Right.
calls, they've answered the phone and heard the voice of their loved one.
Wow. I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Just want to remind our listeners that, again, I say it over and over again, but it's really just a matter of opening your mind and not dismissing, the signs and the things that we see. But
Exactly. And when you get great stories like this, send us an email.
good idea.
Tell us your stories, because
I
there
would love
are so many
Right.
out there.
Good idea. Amy to the second power with the number 2 at AOL.com. So also another odd thing that's been happening to me is the readings I've been doing lately, I keep getting live people. And I think we talked about this briefly. I find it confusing.
I usually tell the person that I might bring up names or of people that are here living. We don't just, you have to be a psychic to be a medium. So sometimes we are seeing things psychically of the person that we're reading and about their lives. The medium part will be their guides, angels, their loved ones on the other side that have passed, but they could also be communicating from the other side messages about the people that are living here, the people in their lives that are here still. And they want to give messages to them about that. For example, you might tell Sam that his grandfather is giving the message about Steve, and they will say, but Steve's still alive.
Right.
And then you might say, yes, he wants you to know that Steve needs extra help. And
it's just odd when I can see a person and I describe the person, and I'm just assuming that the person is deceased because that's what I've always gotten. And then they'll say, well, you've just described my Uncle Max perfectly and he's still alive. And so that's a new thing that's been happening with me. It's kind of
the interesting thing about that also that might be helpful is when you see the person, whether it be in your mind's eye or they show themselves from the other side, how they looked here. So when you're seeing an image or you're seeing their loved one, whether they're here still or on the other side, they're going to show to you what they look like. So that's what the image you're going to see. So it could be either. It could be someone here still on this side, or it could be someone that is passed on.
Right.
But you're going to see them how they looked.
Well, I mean, I have noticed a pattern with the people that, I bring up who are still alive. Uh, I think almost 100% of the time they have had some kind of health problem. So I guess that is a message. But
Maybe. They do know that. They know about the health issues. They might know about other things that are going on in your life, and they just want to say, we're there for you. And the person can say, I'm going to ask for help, but then they need to wait until they get the help and be open to it, and just know that it'll happen. They
right,
have to be.
right. But just want to
Yeah.
remind everybody, if you're thinking you can't do this, just try, practice, meditate, concentrate, listen to our show number 3 and I think 5, where I talk about how I help develop my skills. It's just, I can't even tell people how it's enhanced my life and others. I love it that I can help other people who are grieving.
Yes, it will help with the people that are grieving, and they also pay it forward because they call their family members and help them as
Right.
well.
True.
So it's helping more than one person sometimes, including ourselves, because it's
And
rewarding.
it is very rewarding. And it's so nice. Actually, it just happened today. A friend of mine said they were going to a funeral, their friend's mother. And I said, well, if your friend is interested and when she's ready, she's more than welcome to call me and I can see if I can get her a message to her mother. What else can you do to offer help to somebody? It's a nice way to try to help somebody.
And wouldn't you want to speak to your mom if someone said, hey, I got your mom on the phone now, and you hadn't talked to her because she passed, or you for years? Would you not say, put her on? I'd love to hear from her. I'd love to talk to her. So I think that even people that
I would love
are
to. You
skeptics,
would probably tell me that my hair is too long. Have I gotten it cut recently? But besides that, I would love to hear from her.
and even if someone was skeptical about this, they might still take the chance and
Right.
listen.
Yeah.
Might
So,
as well try.
yep. So if you don't, learn how to do it yourselves, think about just mentioning it to somebody who has, dealing with grief. And there's always Amy and Amy who will. No, I'm kidding. Of course, any good reputable medium can hopefully help them.
Unless they ask them to give them more money and more money.
Right.
Their grandmother's jewelry. I tell people that.
No.
Yeah. No real medium would do that. Take the curse off of you if you do this or that. That's not how authentic mediums should work. Ethical.
Well, and speaking of, I had sort of a weird situation with someone. I was getting a reading from her father, and I said, there's something about some money missing from a savings and loan on Fifth Avenue. I don't even remember all the details, but I had that her sister was involved with it. And I was really hesitant to say anything. I mean, if I'm wrong, that's awfully bad. But she kept pressing me and I blabbed. But again, I told her, look, I am far from 100% accurate. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes but I'm not. I'm usually right though.
Yes.
Just so our audiences don't.
I say 85 to 90%.
Okay, I'm at about 75, everybody. Full disclosure. All right, Aim. Well, I think we have a caller, friend of yours, Marianne, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's try to get her on the line.
Okay.
All righty. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, ladies.
Hi. Thank you for being on our show.
Hi, Marianne.
We appreciate it. So Marianne, unfortunately lost her husband a few years ago. And I know that Amy has done several readings for her and helped her through the grieving process. Marianne, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about some of the readings with Amy and some of the experiences?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to share was I had never met Amy. She had never met us as a family or a couple, but I had known that she was a medium, and I was encouraged to give her my information. And he shared with her things that no one could have ever known. He mentioned beach balls, which is something that he always had in the pool. He sat on the patio a lot, and he loved the beach balls. He mentioned Lily, which was a dress line that I like to wear. He told Amy that I was going to New York and I was staying with Carolyn, which was amazing because a few days after this incident of Amy being in touch with him, we were flying to New York, and nobody even knew that.
And there was someone named
my sister-in-law, Carol.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it was just amazing
Missed
the
it,
things that she was sharing. And then
Michael.
let's see here. He told her tattoos, and both of my girls, our daughters, had gotten tattoos on their forearm in his handwriting, because he gave them a Valentine's Day card that said, "I love you, Dad." And in his handwriting, they each got that tattoo, and he told her tattoos, so he knew that they had gotten the tattoos. John showed Amy his wedding ring, and Amy shared that that reflects that there was a solid marriage. She said it was a very clear vision of the ring. He actually showed her some pictures, which was interesting. He showed her a picture of the two girls, my two daughters, when they made communion. He knew that somebody had been on a cruise and was seasick. He told her cruise seasick, and I had taken my daughters and my granddaughter on a cruise, and I came back with vertigo for like 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
So he said cruise seasick, and she said someone was sick on a cruise, and that was me.
Wow.
When we would go to Houston for his treatments, we stayed in Houston each time he had the treatment on a street called Westheimer. And my sister-in-law encouraged me to join a Mahjong group. And when I got the card in the mail, the Mahjong card that I ordered on eBay came from Westheimer Street in Houston, which was shocking to me. It was the exact street we always stayed on at the hotel in Houston. And the day of his birthday, the year we lost him, his favorite show was Wheel of Fortune. And for his birthday, I watched Wheel of Fortune, which normally I didn't watch. And the flashback puzzle that day on his birthday went back to 1991. It was the year we were married, and the puzzle was Grumpy, which was his nickname.
Wow.
And on that same show, one of the puzzles was, one of the answers was, or the prize was Aruba, which we had just gone to.
Wow.
It was crazy. And so things like
if
that.
I can interrupt you for a
have to
minute.
be aware of signs.
That's what I was just going to say.
You just have to be open to it and be aware of it. I mean, Amy can put you so much in the direction, but sometimes you have to see the gray. You know, she can give you black and white, but sometimes you have to be open and see the gray areas and fill in the blanks because they're there.
Right.
You know, and if it wasn't that I was writing all this down as she was sharing it with me, some of it was an obvious aha moment, and some of it I had to think about a day or two while my kids plugged it in, like Lily being the dress.
Right.
She said, "Lily, I'm thinking a flower." And my daughter said, "Lily, that's the dress line you wear." So things like that.
Right.
You know, I kept his car for a while, and one day I'm driving his car to go to work, and I'm getting this weird banging noise. So I turn around, and not even a block later, and I come back to the house, and there's a red helium balloon stuck under the wheel well of the front tire. And I thought, oh my God, I've never even seen this balloon, you know, like sometimes somebody's debris, you know, the wind moves it or a ball comes out of a pool. So I took it out of the car and I put it in my garbage pail, and then the car was working fine. When I came home, that same helium balloon, like all half deflated, was sitting by my front door. How does that happen? Plus, it was a heart-shaped red balloon. Like so many mysteries of this.
Yeah.
You know, I left his slippers by the side of the bed for the longest time. And I came home from work one day, and one is perfect, and one is upside down in the exact same spot.
Wow.
There's no one here. It's impossible that was moved somehow.
There's no one else
there's
had
so
been in
many
your
little
house.
things.
Yeah. And that's what we are going to talk about in this show. I think earlier we talked about how important it is just to tune in, just to don't just slough things off as, oh, well, I must be nuts. Maybe I did knock the slipper over. I mean, enough things happen that you can't explain. You know, it is important to open up your mind. And
No coincidences.
no coincidences.
When they want to give you a message, they'll do it subtly so as not to scare the crap out of you. But if you're not paying attention, sometimes they get a little bit more. So it might be little things through the television frequency or your phone or technology, a song on the radio. But there's once the picture falling off the wall, the shoe being not where it's supposed to be, the balloon, I mean, you see different butterflies around, but you might not see one that lands on your nose. You know, that's not the typical sign or symbol. So it's going to be something a little bit more. And you're going to know it.
Another time I got in his car driving to work, and our wedding song was on. And as soon as I got to my gate to leave, the song went off, like you couldn't get the station anymore. But I went up the station and down the station, and it didn't exist. Whatever channel frequency it was coming through, it was on the station that didn't exist.
Huh. Oh,
and it was our wedding song, and it only played until I left the gate. And then I couldn't capture it back, up one, down one. It didn't exist on the actual radio station. I can't say I was a believer. I can't say I was a non-believer. And I think that when you're in a situation, when you lose a loved one, you'll try anything to try to reconnect with them. And not that this is anything, there couldn't be anything more simple, but I had nothing to lose. And like I say, the very first day that I reached out to Amy, he already was waiting for her to contact, for that contact.
And
so,
then it helped.
I'm a total believer because it just keeps going on and on and on. But, Amy was really the light for me to open to other things.
And I'm sure Amy's messages helped you some through the grieving process. I can't imagine what you've been going through, but I'm sure just knowing he's there and looking after you, it's got to give you some peace.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes on and on. But yes, it's absolutely an eye-opener, and I'm just glad that she has that gift that can connect you.
Yeah.
With your loved ones, because in some cases, or many cases, I'm sure they're kind of waiting to get in touch with you as well. So they just need that mediator to connect heaven and earth.
Right.
Correct. Sometimes people don't realize that they have that ability, that they can use that, and that their loved one is around them in spirit. They just have to look for the signs, look for the patterns, and not say things like, oh, that's just a coincidence that the light's flickering. Oh, there just is a feather right in front of me. I'm not saying if you have a whole bunch of birds flying around that you might see feathers, but it's not where it normally should be. Or just to look for things like that, you're going to be able to start seeing it. Your electrical things. If you look up and you see your lights flashing, yeah, maybe you need a new light bulb. But if you have a new light bulb in, or you didn't even have a light bulb in, it's a little something that you could say, wow, that must be a sign. And they'll give ones that they know you will know, like a smell. It's going to smell like his cologne. Voice sometimes.
In the beginning, I would hear, and I would kind of look, but not so much voices, no.
But you would hear him calling you in the beginning.
Yeah, I felt like I would hear him sometimes call my name, but for me, it was more physical things like the balloon in the tire, the lights going out,
right.
and Amy telling me things that no one could know.
Yeah.
No one could know.
Yeah.
So, then he woke her up once at like 2 or 3 in the morning. He came to her, and then she called me later that day, and she said, "Wow, John woke me up last night. Here's what he wants you to know."
Wow.
So he actually went back to her.
Wow.
They come back if they're not finished.
Wow, that's really neat.
Yeah,
great
so
to get.
He loved the opportunity to be in touch with her.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marianne, so much. We really appreciate it. It's
Yeah, and
really
he told
sorry for
her-
your
and
loss.
John told Amy that there's a pillow in the house and sometimes he moves it.
Oh,
Because I'm just looking at this.
you're
yeah.
watching for that. Yeah. Aw. Sounds
Yep.
like it.
He's
Sounds
saying,
like
hello, I love you.
You know, anybody that loses someone, whether they're a believer, the person who passed is a believer, if this is any opportunity to open that line of communication, it's really a wonderful thing, and it's
Aw,
so comforting.
that's
It's
really
so
nice.
comforting on so many levels, and even my kids felt that way, that it was very
Aw.
comforting.
Oh,
That
great.
makes me feel great. That's what we
Thank
do.
you, Marianne.
I
All
am
my
a believer.
Aw, thank you. We have to play that
Thank
song.
you.
I'm a believer.
Yes.
All my
Bye
best
now.
to you and your family. Thanks.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Bye, Marianne.
Bye. Very sweet.